I want him to look in my eyes. I want him to look in my face, Vince. The face that you can't even look at right now.
Look at what he's doing. Oh, wait, what's he doing? What's he doing? What he's doing in his face?
Injuries in wrestling can happen at any time, but how can you tell if a wrestler is legitimately injured or not? Well, regardless of how well the wrestler is selling the kayfabe injury or a referee is throwing up the infamous X signal to attract medical attention, viewers should pay close attention to whether it's being talked about on commentary. If the injury is legitimate, you might notice that commentators will try to avoid the subject or play it down. For example, on an episode of Monday Night Raw, Neville legitimately injured his foot during a match with Chris Jericho, but commentators ignored Neville hobbling on one foot and instead concentrated on the argument between Chris Jericho and referee Charles Robinson, who needed to end the match with a different finish. There are times, however, when WWE is fully aware that a wrestler is kayfabe injured and plays it up for storyline purposes. The injury can allow wrestlers to dupe their opponents, build a heated storyline, or hype a return. In any case, no wrestlers were legitimately harmed during these storylines. Number 1. Alexa Bliss's broken arm. Probably one of the best known fake injuries, that's why we're putting it as number 1, is when Alexa Bliss's arm looked like it had been popped in the wrong direction during a match on SmackDown Live against the Irish lass kicker Becky Lynch. It looked great, as many were unaware that Bliss is double jointed and can seemingly trick people into thinking that her arm has been dislocated when in fact she can do it herself without causing any pain. Alexa Bliss would use this tactic again to gain the upper hand in a match against Sasha Banks at the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view in 2017, pretending to injure her arm in order to distract the legit boss. The trick, however, didn't work quite as smoothly as it did before, as even though Bliss would retain the championship, she would suffer a loss as Banks would get the win via countout. She commented on her trick in an interview with Route Music saying, "Well, my elbow's just like bent backwards. They both do. They always have. I always used to freak out my cheer coaches with it all the time. But it's just a little trick." Number 2. Chyna's neck injury. Dubbed the 9th wonder of the world, Chyna was well remembered for breaking down female wrestler barriers in the WWE, becoming the first ever female participant in a Royal Rumble match, and the first and only ever female Intercontinental Champion. There are, however, moments that she shouldn't be remembered for, one being the fake broken neck injury angle that occurred in 2001. Wrestling Right to Censor member Ivory at the 2001 Royal Rumble pay-per-view, Chyna collapsed after a handspring elbow. Now, it wasn't the injury that received no sympathy from the crowd, it was the way they treated it so seriously. Similar to the reaction Owen Hart's real-life injury and death received, WWE mirrored the reaction for the purpose of this injury, knowing it was purely an angle. Jerry Lawler would rush to the ring, like he did at the Over the Edge pay-per-view, and JR would give a somber speech, highlighting the dangers in the ring, treating this like a legitimate injury. Because of this, the injury wasn't well received by fans. Number 3. Bret Hart's leg injury. It was perhaps one of the most shocking returns in WWE history, as due to the infamous Montreal Screwjob incident that occurred in 1997 and the untimely death of brother Owen Hart, Bret the Hitman Hart would step back into a WWE ring after 13 years. Hart would make amends with Shawn Michaels and enter into a feud with Vince McMahon, confronting him after the chairman legitimately screwed him out of the championship at 97 Survivor Series pay-per-view. Hart would challenge McMahon to a match at WrestleMania 26, but Vince refused. Since he turned him down, Hart would leave the arena, but not before getting into a car accident backstage where a car reversed into Hart's limo unaware he was getting in. Seriously, who wouldn't be able to see a giant black limo behind them? Anyway, Hart's leg would be trapped in between the car door, injuring it. WWE even played up the injury by posting a statement on WWE.com saying, "Bret suffered a broken left leg in addition to ligament and tendon damage." Proving that kayfabe was still alive in 2010, fans actually called a number on the back of the ambulance after this happened, asking if Bret was okay. It went so far that WWE would even post on their website, "Attention, please do not call 222-2222 regarding the condition of Bret the Hitman Hart. Contact the WWE for updates. Our number is for emergency calls only. Thank you." During the contract signing on Raw, Hart would appear with a huge cast on his leg and be aided with crutches to the ring. Vince would see he's unable to wrestle and think Hart's lack of mobility would make him easy pickings in the ring. However, Hart would fool McMahon, as after the two signed the contract, Hart would remove his cast, placing it on the table, revealing he had faked his injury just to get McMahon to agree to the grudge match. Number 4. Jeff Hardy's Pyro accident. Pyro is rare in present-day WWE. Whilst one could say it's down to WWE's frugal budget, others might suggest that it's been removed for the safety of wrestlers, as there have been a number of real pyro-related accidents in WWE. In a rare case, however, the WWE would fake a pyro accident. As the charismatic enigma Jeff Hardy made his entrance on SmackDown, he was injured by a malfunctioning firework, moments before he was set to be the guest star on the talk show segment The Cutting Edge. WWE fooled a number of fans thinking that the accident was real and Hardy was legitimately injured, but since it aired on SmackDown and there were a number of replays showing it, fans quickly figured out that it was all planned. Number 5. Jake Roberts' eye injury. In a twist of fate, just like his pet snake Damien, Jake Roberts suffered relative blindness in his right eye at the hands of the model Rick Martel. Martel, who was a guest on the Brother Love show, was spraying his trademark arrogance cologne into the air as Jake arrived with Damien. Martel continuously sprayed the snake with his cologne, but inadvertently sprayed the substance right into Jake's eye. Jake sold the injury brilliantly, and WWE would update the progress of his injury on weekly WWE programming. Jake would wear sunglasses to hide the injury, as he sometimes revealed underneath it was a nasty degenerated pupil. Of course, the injury wasn't real and Roberts had simply worn a white contact lens to make it appear as if he was blind. Their feud would culminate at WrestleMania 7 in the infamous blindfold match. Number 6. Shawn Michaels collapses in the ring. Before the proliferation of the internet, wrestling promotions could keep upcoming storylines relatively secret, making some moments in the ring look very realistic. One such instance is when the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, who was experiencing a massive surge in popularity at the time, mostly amongst the female demographic, wrestled Owen Hart on a November 20th, 1995 edition of Monday Night Raw. Despite being polar opposites in real life, both wrestlers showed tremendous chemistry in the ring. After a clothesline which sent Owen to the outside, Michaels was in the ring showing off, but suddenly he collapsed in the middle of the ring. The crowd was silent as Michaels laid motionless in the ring. Announcers Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler even left their position to help out, and EMTs were called to the scene. The moment looked very real, and at the time WWE wasn't even known for such kayfabe storylines, blurring the lines between reality and entertainment. In truth, the collapse was a well-planned storyline, as before the angle was played out, Shawn Michaels had gotten into a real-life altercation with a number of sailors at a nightclub in Syracuse. Michaels was badly beaten, suffering a cut to the eye, and had post-concussion syndrome. To make the storyline as realistic as possible, only a few people would be told of the angle. Reportedly just McMahon, Diesel, and Michaels would know. He even rode in a proper ambulance to the hospital to make it look like he had genuinely suffered a concussion in the ring. The collapse angle would allow Michaels to recover from his real-life beating and make a huge return at the Royal Rumble, where he would win it and face Bret Hart for the championship at WrestleMania 12. The storyline would center around the boyhood dream of Michaels winning his first ever WWE Championship. And number 7. Triple H's snakebite injury. During the peak of WWE's Attitude Era in 1999, Triple H was in a heated feud with the Texas Rattlesnake Stone Cold Steve Austin. The two would be scheduled to meet at the No Mercy pay-per-view, but before that, Triple H would start playing mind games with Austin, even going so far as to taking a rattlesnake and viciously killing it with a sledgehammer. The two would also have a backstage altercation, but a smart move led to Austin throwing Triple H into a locker room and trapping him with a real rattlesnake. We wouldn't know what happened to Triple H as Austin would lock the door. However, a few days later on that week's edition of SmackDown, Triple H would appear with a venomous bite on his face, as it was obvious the snake had bitten him. Triple H would cut an Oscar-winning promo about how dangerous it had become being a wrestler, and that everything has gone too far. Austin is trying to kill people for the belt. Ultimately, this led to Triple H announcing his retirement. The cerebral assassin was racked with a convulsion and foaming at the mouth. After seeking medical attention, Triple H was seen backstage confronting Austin, who who felt somber after seeing his facial injury. But it turns out all of this was a ruse to lure Austin into a false sense of security, as both he and Chyna would attack him, getting the upper hand before their match on Sunday. Triple H would then rip off his snakebite, revealing it to be just prosthetic makeup all along. It seemed like the tactic worked, as Triple H would retain the WWE Championship in a bloody and brutal anything goes match at the No Mercy pay-per-view. These are just some of the injuries that looked real but were faked. Would you like to see more? Well, hit that like button and let us know in the comments down below. As always, I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.